Have any Japanese people ghosted you before? I'm gonna give you 5 possible reasons I can think of why Japanese people ghosted you. Firstly, they might not be interested in you. Don't take it personally though. Every human has a liking and disliking of a person. So simply, they just don't feel like hanging out with you. Maybe you pressed the wrong button. Maybe you made them feel uncomfortable by saying something uncomfortable. Japanese people are the same as Italian people, American people, German people. We're just same species. We might share a different culture, but we're all the same. So just like when you don't feel uncomfortable with someone, don't want to hang out with them, Japanese people feel the same sometimes. So the first reason, in my opinion, isn't really uniquely Japanese. Second reason I can think of is honne to tatemae. Have you heard of these terms? Honne and tatemae. Honne means true feelings. Tatemae means like a mask that we wear. And in Japanese culture, honne and tatemae are significantly different sometimes. It depends on the region too, but most of the time we tend to have honne, which is true feelings, tatemae, which is the feelings we show to people. So some of you might be confused when a Japanese person texts you, let's hang out again, to you. That is the way of showing either their tatemae or their sincere wish to hang out with you again. You have to kind of guess whether the person wants to hang out with you. So you have to observe really carefully what the person wants when you're hanging out with them. It is really difficult for English speakers, especially because Japanese is what it's called high context language, meaning Japanese tends to rely on context rather than the literal, whereas English, and another example is German, they use low context language. These English and German, for example, they are low context language, which means they tend to rely on the context less. So you tend to say everything. In Japanese, we even have a word, kuki o yomu, which literally means read the atmosphere or read the air. In English, you would just say read the situation. In Japanese, it is more often required to read the situation. A lot more. You need to understand how they speak when you meet them, how they having fun. If they're having fun with you, you really have to observe if they're having fun with you. If they're not, and if they text, like let's hang out together, that's probably just a tatemae. Possible reason number 3 is they might be overwhelmed. Why? Because if they're speaking English, they might be overwhelmed. Even if they express their wish to learn English with you, they might be overwhelmed. And people's concentration power or willpower is finite. If they're speaking English all the time with you, probably they might be overwhelmed, and especially if their English is not so good. Because let's say you are learning Japanese. Although you want to learn Japanese, but if you're trying to speak Japanese all the time, you might be overwhelmed. Same situation for Japanese people. If they're trying to speak English, but if they're doing it all the time, they might be overwhelmed. They might lose interest in learning English by interacting with English-speaking people. Possible reason number 4 is they might be a good listener. What does that mean? Well, a good listener listens a lot. and they might be overwhelmed again by just listening too much. I've seen this happen quite a lot between non-Japanese and Japanese people. Is a non-Japanese person talks, share their stories, share their family backgrounds, share their situations, and then the Japanese person just listens, and we tend to speak really less, a lot less than probably the Westerners, most Westerners. So we just become listeners, and then being listened to feels really good. So you keep talking, you keep talking, keep talking. They might know you a lot more than you know about them. Of course, I'm not saying all Japanese people aren't talkative and all non-Japanese people are talkative. I'm saying entertaining the possibility of Japanese people being the listeners, the tendency to become listeners, and the non-Japanese people tendency to become talkers. So if the balance is not balanced, that's not really a communication. So the obvious solution is to ask them questions. If they're not opening up, then probably that person isn't the one for you, to become partners with or friends with. Because if they're not opening up, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to know them more. So you should just move on to another person. Possible reason number 5. You are forcing yourself to befriend Japanese people. What do I mean by that? Well, I've met some people who are only interested in Japanese people, whether romantically or friendship. I don't think that's a good strategy. I know you are finding Japanese culture and Japanese people attractive if you're interested in Japanese content, but that kind of turned people off. For example, Weebs who want to date Japanese girls. That's a turnoff, isn't it? But that's the same as non-Japanese people hunting for Japanese boys too. Some Japanese boys are like, oh yeah, sure, why not? But if I was the one who's being chased because I was Japanese, then that would be a turnoff, because you want a Japanese guy, not me, right? You don't have to be fixated on meeting a Japanese person or dating a Japanese person. To me, the race doesn't matter. Obviously, there's a tendency. That's what I talk about in my other videos about Japanese people, and I'm just saying an anecdote, right? Just my experience of being with Japanese people haven't quite been positive, so that's why I'm sharing my honesty in other videos of mine. But I'm not speaking for every Japanese person. There are still good Japanese people that I can vibe with. Not meeting them is greater, So that's why I don't really focus on making friends with Japanese people or dating a Japanese person. It's not like I'm saying I'm only going to date a non-Japanese person. I'm only going to date a European girl or something, It's not what I'm saying. It's just tendency. It's the possibility of meeting someone I like is not in Japan. It has to be from abroad, right? Just like I'm saying, race doesn't matter, ethnicity doesn't matter. So why do you care about the ethnicity? Why do you care about Japanese people? If you like the tendency of being Honne and Tatemae, probably that's the reason. There might be a reason, so why don't you ask yourself, why do I want to meet Japanese people? Why do I want to be friends with Japanese people? Why do I date a Japanese person? You should ask yourself that. And the deeper you go, the deeper, more profoundly you ask yourself why you want a Japanese person in your life, then it would be clear for you. I know it was hard to admit these 5 reasons there's something that's outside of control. So that's why I'm providing the solution is to move on. If the person doesn't respond or doesn't text you back. Now, but how do I do it? I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of being left out. I don't have the mental resilience to just move on. I really like that person. Well, then my solution is to build that mental resilience, which we all need in this really difficult life, right? My solution that I can give you is mindfulness. Lots of people misunderstand this mindfulness as just shutting down all thoughts. Nothing could be further from the truth. Mindfulness is just being aware of your feelings and your thoughts and all that stuff. So for example, if you've been texting a Japanese guy and he suddenly doesn't respond to you, you might feel sad, you might feel hurt, you might feel anxious, right? So when that happens, you just admit that you have these thoughts. Naming them really helps too. So for example, I don't know, a Japanese guy rejected me, anxiety or something. You could name that thought and then you begin to accept it. You don't have to be a Zen master to practice mindfulness. You don't have to be a Buddhist to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is accessible to everyone, regardless of religious beliefs or regardless of your mindful or meditation practice. If I were to explain mindfulness in a more clear way, I'm gonna just have to borrow some of the Russ Harris's words from his book, The Happiness Trap. Their thoughts are like ugly monsters. The ugly monsters, if you're not aware of them, are in the darkness. If you're mindless, and if you're just being sorrow, if you're just being sad, if you're just being worried, if you're just being anxious, these monsters just exist in your brain and you don't see them. And they're really scary. But mindfulness, being mindful and being aware of those thoughts, by naming that I'm worried, that I'm anxious, that I'm sad, you bring the light onto those monsters so you'll be able to see them. This lighting does not turn them into fluffy, cotton, cute creatures. They're still ugly, but they're less intimidating. That's what you kind of do when you do mindfulness, when you be mindful of your thoughts. That's what Russ Harris said in his best-selling book, The Happiness Trap. Or Brené Brown said in her research, these thoughts are gremlins, ugly monsters. Well, ugly monsters exist all the time in our thoughts, in our head. But if we name them, if we just acknowledge them, they look less intimidating because we know that they are there. And then we become less bothered by it. I've read so many books on psychology, mental health, all that stuff. Mutually, they speak about mindfulness, importance of mindfulness. Even for healing trauma, even healing for addiction, everything, every psychological problem, they recommend mindfulness. So, because being fear of rejection and fear of being left out, abandoned, being hurt is a psychological thing, I'm offering you the ability to become mindfulness, the ability to see, observe all those thoughts in your head. If you're interested further in this topic, I highly recommend this book, Strong-Hearted Vegan. I will link it in the description below. You can check it out. this is just not just for vegans, but I think everyone can benefit a lot from this book. So I highly recommend you read this book and just move on by accepting your thoughts and feeling affluent, mindfully rich. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Until next time.